Remember, if you were a robot, you'd be short-circuited. If you were a tree, you would have fallen over because your foundations aren't solid enough. But we just keep on keeping on. We now stay deep into the pain cycle because we're working on compensation. Our short circuit system is actually creating more pain. This is a topic that's completely underrated. Your foundations are your feet. These little suckers mean absolutely everything to your every movement you make. So listen to this episode and let's start addressing the root cause. So if your feet and your hips are not married, they're not connected, they're not in alignment, well then obviously our neutral spine is going to be out, not moving efficiently, and obviously our movements are going to be more clunky. So it's a two-way street. Foot problems will lead to back issues and vice versa. Welcome back to Rebuild, Revive and Thrive. This is the actual place where I unravel the mysteries to your body and to enable you to live pain-free. But today we're going to venture into a topic that literally supports everything that you do, and that's our feet. Anybody that knows me knows that I am a foot person. Now, I don't have a foot fetish. I'm not that weird foot fetish person. But when we talk about connecting your feet to your back and hip pain, it's definitely something that you mustn't overlook. And it's definitely something that is connected to your pain in that alignment. And I'm going to dive deeper into that today. So your feet are actually centered to your posture. They help you move more efficiently. They help your body become more stable. And like I said, they are definitely connected to your back and hip pain. And don't let anybody tell you any differently. But first, let's step into the blueprint of your body's balance. So moving forward from this, I want you to picture yourself, or have you ever walked on a rocky path? A path that's actually mixed terrain. So there's a bit of rocks, and a bit of sand, a bit of this and a bit of that, and you didn't fall over. Well, this isn't just because you feel like your body is in a stable position. This is your feet actually working their magic. So they're not just there to fill your shoes, right? And on that note, we need correct footwear as well. But they're actually complex structure. They're designed to get you through uneven surfaces. They're designed to absorb the impact, to keep you balanced. So these are just a few things for you to keep in mind. So I've got a few little facts, and I know I've mentioned shock absorbing a little bit already, but guys, they are the shock absorbers. I actually call the feet the general sergeants, and you're going to really realize this by the end of this podcast. So every time you move, your feet, the arches of your feet actually absorb all shock. I want you to think about if your car was running rough, like the shockies were a little bit rough in the car, there is no cushioning in the bumps when you're actually in the car. So you go get it fixed at the mechanic, right? Well, when have you taken your body to the mechanic? Hey, you could actually get in touch with me. I'm a biomechanic specialist. And you, enough of that. You need to actually get your feet now fixed, because there is no shock absorber. And now that shock every time that you actually take a step is going to your hips and your back. But it's the arches of your feet that play a huge role in the shock absorbing. They're like natural springs. Okay. So when your feet are actually flattened, they're not going to spring back. You know, if you got flat feet over time due to posture, or you got high arches, you don't have a shock absorber. So all that pressure is going to your back and hips, and they're not acting as a natural spring. Now, if we're going to get into it, you're actually going to have all that pressure go to your knees, your hips as well, and your back. Your feet are your balance. In fact, if we were to chop off your big toe, please don't chop off your big toe. I'm not recommending it. But if you were to chop off your big toe, you will have no balance now. So whether you're going to walk on a rocky path or whether you're going to stand on one leg, your feet now make those small adjustments to keep you upright. And that's, like I said, due to the complex structure of the bones, to the muscles and the joints. And they all work together to keep your body upright, stable, mobile, whatever you need to be efficient. But it's actually now that your body now becomes a finely tuned machine, due to the general sergeants, due to your feet. Not only do they keep you balanced, not only do they have the shock absorber, but they actually are designed to be mobile and stable. Okay, so they've got mobility and stability. They've got flexible joints. They've got strong muscles. This allows you to move when you're in, walking, when your gait is essentially the way that you move. When you're in that push-off motion, they actually have mobility and stability so that you now can move more efficiently with the whole of your foot. Not only do we move forward, but they are now the controller of all different directions. You can now propel forward. You can go laterally. They need to be able to direct you in all directions. And that's not just smoothly. That's if you're actually prone to sprains or strains through your ankles, your feet are not being the general sergeant, because now they're not actually being able to control the way that you move. They're going to take all your weight. So when we are standing, we are at our body weight. When we are walking, we are 1.5 times our body weight. When we are running, we are 3 times our body weight. So imagine your feet having to take that pressure. They're designed to. They're not big, but they're designed to actually take on the force of every single movement we do. Not only this, but they're actually designed, you can stand still. When you're standing still, just standing, your feet are still working. And I'm sure you're nodding your head going, oh, actually, when I stand for a long period of time, my feet I can feel my feet hurting. Well, they're weak. Okay. So now we need to actually provide stability and make sure that your arches are the shock absorbers. I can help you out with that. But they're going to adjust to even slight shifts in your body to keep you stable. But this is why you can stand up without falling over. Imagine that. Do you know, if they weren't the general sergeants, you would fall over. Well, compensation would happen and it would actually come up to your calves, because I hope you realize your calves being the next in touch with your feet actually help keep you upright. But that's another subject. That'd be a great podcast, actually. So really, in essence, your feet are the hero of your body's mobility and stability. They're the foundation. They're the tree roots. They actually help you move, run, hop, skip, jump, fall. Anything you do, your feet are involved in. Even when you're sitting, your sitting posture, how are your feet? We need to actually realize this. Like I said, they are actually part of our body that is the general sergeant. Let's just keep them that. They are needing to be addressed, don't need to be overlooked at. They are connected to your back and hip pain. But what is your foot posture? Have you actually thought about that? Okay, let's get a little bit technical, but just stick with me. I'm not going to go deep and bore you, really. This all excites me. But our feet are the hero of engineering. They have 26 bones. You have numerous joints. You have over 100 muscles. You have tendons and you have ligaments. They're divided into the forefoot, to the midfoot, to the hindfoot. Each playing roles, like I've said, in balance, shock absorbing, and in all movements, in all directions. So really, in everything you do, they need to be the general sergeant. Foundations, being your tree roots, need to actually be healthy. The arches of your feet need to make sure they act like springs. And this is crucial in every movement for the impacts and also for the forces and providing stability and moving efficiently when they don't properly work. And I'm saying that, it's not a matter of, okay, my feet are not 100%, but they're, at least they're at like 80%. So that's okay, right? No, if you even have, let's say 5% dysfunction in your foot, whether it's right foot, left foot, both feet, the actual compensation is real, and over time it's going to cause more pressure throughout the joints, like I've mentioned. So is it that your right foot is slightly pronated or supinated, or even dorsiflex, even point and flex? We need to make sure that all movement in all directions are close to 100%. I'm saying 90%, because if you're going to work on something and you actually want to get yourself out of pain for good, your feet need to be addressed. They affect our entire posture. And, like I mentioned, your feet and your hips are now linked. They are now married. So when you have a missing link somewhere, whether it's 1 foot flat or the other, whether the arches, are 5% not absorbing the shock. Imagine 5% not absorbing the shock out of your feet. That extra 5% movement and shock is going to your lower back. Your lower back only likes 15%, 13 to 15%. You've added 5%. Over time, that's a lot to that lumbar spine there. That needs stability. So if you can see what I'm talking about, just that even 5% over time, it's like knocking out that first domino in a line. Then all of a sudden, everything is going to start, all the other dominoes are going to start, knocking down. God, that's a blast from the past. I haven't done that for a long time. So let me throw something out there to you without going on a rampage. The missing link between your feet and your hips, 99.9% of the time, is your knee. Your knee does not want extra pressure. You do not want extra pressure in your knee. Your knee is a structure between your knee and between your foot and your hip to enable us to move efficiently. Once this structure has extra pressure on it, well, let me tell you, ain't nobody got time for knee pain. And if you've got knee pain, you're there nodding, going, actually, once you got knee pain, it's hard to get out of. It's not hard if you know what to do. We've got to get those muscles working properly. But, you can get a lot of structural issue because it's not designed for that extra pressure. So over time, we're going to lead to, with this happening, over time, we're going to lead to muscle strains. We're going to change our spine's natural curve. And then if we're going to go further, that's actually going to put extra pressure on your pelvis and put your pelvis out of alignment. Ain't nobody got time for your pelvis out of alignment. That is the center to your movement. Bottom line. Okay, we're talking about general sergeants being your feet, your tree roots, whatever works best for you to remember that. But your pelvis is a center of movement. So working up the chain from your feet up to your pelvis, there is no need to have extra pressure there. There's no need for it to be out of alignment. We can fix it. All right, so I am starting to ramble, but in all honesty, like I've mentioned, the general sergeant, that is your feet. Don't overlook them. Look down now if you're barefoot, not with shoes on, because shoes aren't going to dictate the general sergeant. They're going to take over the general sergeant's role. That's another issue. And if you feel like that's happening, make sure you reach out to me. But look down if you're barefoot. How are your feet? Are they in line with your knees? Do they point the same way as your knees? This is common. Does your knee hit your heel hits the ground and you roll out on the outside of your foot? We don't want that either. That is so much pressure on the outside of your feet, outside of your whole leg, and we're going to end up definitely with ITB issue and definitely hip pain. This is why I don't want you to let anybody tell you that your back and your hip pain are not, your back, your hip and your foot pain is not connected. I've had people come to me that I've worked with that have had hip pain for years and a foot pain for close to the same amount of time, and they've been told by other professionals time and time again they're not connected. They are. We need to address both. And if you have had back pain or hip pain for a long time and you haven't addressed your feet, you haven't addressed the way that you walk, something's wrong. You do need to look down at your feet and we need to start addressing them. Now let's get on to the back. So especially the spine. You've got to remember that the spine is our central support system. So I've touched base with the feet being the general sergeant. I've touched base with the pelvis being the center of our movement. Well, your spine is the central support system. This is crucial for your posture. This is crucial for your stability in your posture all the way up through your spine. So when our feet don't do a good job, it is now our backs take the brunt of it. Okay, so this leads to further imbalance and further compensation. So let's just go back to when your feet don't do the job properly. This could be, let's say that the arch support, shock absorber, start rolling in. So now the forces, the shocks go to our back. Now the lumbar spine is taking too much movement. Remember, it only likes to take about 15% movement. You've added more movement to it. This will, no questions asked, lead to a muscle imbalance. It will lead to further compensations. It will eventually, that muscle imbalance, because all muscles attached to structure, will lead to some structural damage as well due to bad biomechanics. Keep up, guys. I hope this is making sense. So now this is what I call the suspension system. So we've got bad shockies, we feel every single bump. The suspension system is now also running rough. And you know what? You would have taken your car to the mechanics a long time ago, but have you been in touch with me, the biomechanics specialist? No, you haven't, because we work on compensation. Remember, if you were a robot, you'd be short-circuited. If you were a tree, you would have fallen over because your foundations aren't solid enough. But we just keep on keeping on. We now stay deep into the pain cycle because we're working on compensation. Our short-circuit system is actually creating more pain. Our tree falling over is, another form of the kinetic chain being disconnected. Right, so here's a term for you. Proprioception. What is it? It's actually how our body's ability, let's say, to sense the position that we are in space. So how we move. Our good foot posture or good foot health, this will actually enhance the sense of our proprioception or enhance the sense of where we are in space and how we move efficiently. So that will lead to better balance and will lead to reduced risk of falls and injuries. Now, isn't that why we're here? Isn't that why you're listening to me? That's what we want. But how does this tie back to our back and hips? So through the kinetic chain, baby, through correcting your biomechanics. So an imbalance in the general sergeant, keep up, that's your feet, remember, will lead, will lead to internal rotation through your knees, internal rotation through your hip, and put more strain on your back, aka your spine. So our spine and our hips rely on stability and alignment by our feet, the general sergeant, to have correct posture and to have more efficient movement patterns. So if your feet and your hips are not married, they're not connected, they're not in alignment, all those sort of words, I like to say married, well then obviously our neutral spine is going to be out. Obviously we're not moving efficiently, and obviously our movements are going to be more clunky. So it's a two-way street. Foot problems will lead to back issues and vice versa. So you're probably thinking, okay, Lise, how do I break this cycle? Well, it is essential for you to actually address the root causes of your problem, which is the starting of your feet. If you do have back and hip issues, I'm going to get you to actually look at the alignment of your feet. When you stand up straight, are your feet, your knees, your hips and shoulders all in alignment? Do your feet and your knees point in the right direction? Do your hips, I know it's hard for you to assess if you don't know what you're looking for, but when people come to me, I'm looking at the way that they move. Do your feet, your knees point in the right direction? If you've got back and hip issues, I'm going to tell you that they're not. And we need to address it. We need to address the muscle imbalances, obviously head, shoulders, knees and toes. Because everything is interconnected. You have to realize this. Do you know, how are your shock absorbers? How are your general sergeants? How is your suspension system? And if you're just waking up now because I've bored you to death, listen back to this podcast because I go through each of those sayings. Don't Google them. It's a Lisa McLean saying. But, you know, how are all these systems in your body? So issues in our feet will lead to you having to have adjustments to your knees, your hips, your spine, and they will cause pain in these areas. No doubt about it. You'll have compensation. You're going to be staying in that pain cycle unless you address the connection between your feet and your hips and everything in between. It's a chain reaction. Like I said, if a problem in one part, well, this will actually affect several other parts, not just in one other part, not one other part, and then, we'll pick up another part. It is, you're like that hamster in the hamster wheel now, trying to get it out of pain. So now you've addressed the alignment, and if you need help with that, then make sure you reach out because that's what I do. But what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that you need to pay attention to your feet. You need to pay attention to your foot health, to your foot posture, whether you're sitting, you're standing, you're lying, or sleeping, and moving, obviously. Your feet are not just addressing blisters or choosing the comfortable shoes. It's about maintaining the overall health and preventing any back and hip pain by addressing alignment, addressing the root cause, making sure that your tree roots are solid. That's what we want. So we need to be mindful of the way we move, your gait, the way that you walk, the way that you stand. Do you know what footwear do you have? And actually making these small changes to your feet and addressing what needs to happen, even just your 1%ers is going to make a hell of a lot of difference in the future and to your back and hip pain. So we're wrapping up, but I hope that you found today's episode enlightening. I hope that you've got a little bit more facts. And you know what? Even if it's just 1% more awareness, I'm winning. You're winning. Everyone's winning. So, make sure to check out my website, www.rebuildprogram.com.au, for more research and resources on living pain-free. Today's episode, I wanted to make sure that you see how crucial your feet are, not just moving us around, but for supporting our whole body's health. So please refer to them as your general sergeant, as I do, because then you're going to make sure that they are important to every single movement. Take care of your feet. We're taking a step towards better posture, reduce pain, and overall well-being when you actually address these root issues. Thanks for walking through this topic with me on Rebuild, Revive, and Thrive. Remember, look after your back, and your back will look after you. I'll see you next time. That's a wrap on yet another episode. If you love the info, don't be shy. Make sure to like, follow, or subscribe, whichever platform you're on. Once again, share this on your socials, whether it's Insta or Facebook, and make sure you tag me in it at Lisa McLean or at Rebuild Program. Whether you're in chronic pain, have a nagging injury, an athlete who wants to improve your performance, or just want to be more efficient and be a better you, then this podcast is for you. And stay up to date by liking, following, or subscribing to be notified of any new episodes coming your way. On that note, I'm going to leave you until the next time, but make it your mission to be more aware and to be a better you.